everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mary Chris, and for today's video we're gonna crack open this book, Brown Skin White Minds, Filipino American Postcolonial Psychology by E.J.R. David. I've actually already read, I think, up to 4 chapters already. However, I want to do this BookTube series the way I'm doing the other BookTube series that I have. But we're going to do it chapter by chapter. And I think it's a really good conjunction. Let me just go get that book. This is the book that I'm talking about in my other BookTube series. And this is perfect tandem for a BookTube series. Because this actually will end up... what do you call that? This book will end up having the same history. Oh my gosh. Intersection. This book will actually meet in an intersection. So, it's really good. I'm really excited. So, you know what I got? I got my tea. There you go. Yes. Let's take a sip. I already love this book, guys. Oh my gosh. I'm learning so much from this book. So, chapter 1 is the Tao, pre-colonial history. And this, look at this, guys. This is Filipino writings. Can you believe that? I didn't even know. I didn't even know until recently that we had our own alphabets. We were made to believe we're savages. And you know what? The book will explain why. This is not something we've just thought of. We were conditioned to think this. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get started. This chapter provides an overview of various aspects of indigenous Filipino life, ranging from the tools and ways of everyday living art, literature, and education to concepts and systems of spirituality and government. This history and indigenous culture has to be told as it is essential for everyone, those with Filipino heritage and those without, to know that the Tao, the people pronounced as Tao, who inhabited the islands we now know as Philippines, had practiced and established impressive systems of living and beliefs even before the Europeans arrived on the islands. This is the important knowledge so that the Filipinos, Filipino Americans of today, Filipino Canadians as well, or any kinds of Filipinos, can have something they can be proud of that is truly and authentically theirs. For them to know that their ancestors, and therefore them as a more modern Tao, were and are capable of surviving without European or outsider help. For them to know that they do not have to be dependent on foreigners. For them not to feel like they owe everything to European colonizers, and for them to appreciate what was taken from them and what they have lost, what they might be missing, and thus what might they be searching for, and what they might want to have again. By the way, I will put E.J.R, like his credentials, I'll put it down in the description below, or I believe it's a psychologist. I'll put it over here somewhere. Okay? So, in that paragraph alone, I didn't even know that was the name of the indigenous peoples, or at least one of them. I know they had tribes, so that was the first people. They were called Tao. And I like how he prefaces this by saying, hey, we never needed their help for advancement. We were already on our way there. Anyways, again, I'm getting ahead of myself because I've already read into chapter 4, and oh man, I almost cried on the subway reading this. That's how good this book is, of just how it opens your minds. Okay? On this one, it says clothing, ornaments, and accessories. The cultural diverse groups of indigenous Tao who inhabited the islands we now know as Philippines had a very vibrant culture and lived in complex societies. Their clothing was often symbolic of their rank in society and of what their capabilities are. For instance, among several indigenous tribes, red clothing is reserved only for chiefs, and a headgear, which is also called putong, expresses that the wearer had killed a man in battle. Added embroidery and design on a red putong represents that the wearer had killed several men during war. Their tops were often sleeveless or short sleeve vests, and their bottoms were usually bahags for men and tapis for women. Bahags and tapis are clothes wrapped around the waist. Such clothing kept them cool in such a hot and humid environment, and I doubt such clothing was designed to keep their skins from getting too dark. Similarly, the ornaments and other bodily accessories they wore were symbolic of their social status. So let's just go back to his line there. I doubt such clothing was designed to keep their skins from too dark. This was from the original peoples. That was they were wearing like the bahag for men, and women it's called tapis. These were appropriate clothings at the time, and that line just saying didn't do it because they were too dark, because at that time we didn't have the insecurities that we have now, where we feel the need to change our appearance vis-a-vis glutathione shots or glutathione medicine, lotion and whatnot. I myself have been, brainwashed thinking that I'm not good enough. And with my nose too, my pango, so-called pango nose, I was made to feel inferior. But at that time, we had those clothes because that was the best clothing for them and for our ancestors. But what it's viewed, even if you see documentaries or you see on what do you call that, geography, National Geography, where like tribes that doesn't have clothes, they're like, ooh, they're kind of portrayed as savages and uncivilized. Well, they're actually doing what's the most appropriate for them, and they need to wear it like that. Now it's the standard of Europe has been forced upon us, and we've internalized it so much that we're not as secure of a people as the indigenous peoples, because they didn't have those biases and prejudice. And yeah, they had their wars too, but definitely they were also living in a peaceful setting as well, and they were able to have treaties. I don't know if they would call it treaties, but that's what they would have, because it would be different tribes all over the Philippines. Similarly, the ornaments and other bodily accessories they wore were symbolic of their social status and were made of materials found in lands. There was an abundance of gold at that time, and due to this gift from the land, many wore gold bracelets, armbands, rings, earrings, and pendants. Many also used gold teeth fillings for aesthetic reasons. Also, for symbolic and aesthetic reasons, both men and women of various tribes carried tattoos on their bodies. I didn't know this. Among women, having facial arm tattoos meant you were both beautiful. Among men, tattoos represented their accomplishments in war, with those tattoos meaning more war experiences and more warriors killed. It is likely that these highly tattooed men who early Spanish explorers and missionaries were referring to when they described them as pintados, or painted people, upon their arrival in the islands. The clothing and ornaments that the indigenous Tao who were inspired by their experiences and important events in their daily lives. Such clothing, ornaments, and accessories were made of materials obtained from the land they were living in, materials that naturally developed from their environment. More importantly, they were made by indigenous Tao. homes, and daily living. The indigenous Tao lived in houses also inspired by and made of materials from their land and daily living. For many who lived in the flatter lands, their houses were built of bamboo, wood, and nipa, palm leaves, which were perfect materials for living in a tropical island environment. This is what many individuals today might call the bahay kubo. For others who lived in the mountain areas such as the northern islands, their houses were built on top of trees. For others who made their living closer to the oceans or rivers, their houses were made on their boats by the shore. And again, I didn't even know that they had houses like that. Depending on where they lived, the indigenous Tao practiced various forms of subsistence activities. Agriculture is common, and their knowledge and expertise in growing crops is evidenced by the highly advanced irrigation systems they developed, including the world-famous rice terraces that, if it places end to end, would stretch halfway around the world. You know what's sad? Is that everything starting from the beginning, I'm just like, wow, I didn't know about this. Because we are not taught in schools. Can you please comment down below if you live in the Philippines, if you're taught pre-colonial history? Because the only pre-colonial history that were taught to us was when Magellan discovered Philippines. Magellan didn't discover Philippines. There were already people living there and thriving in that land before he came. Let's just stop right there, please. With schools, our teachers telling us that it was discovered by Magellan. Stop! Due to their proximity to the ocean and countless rivers, fishing was also a common form of subsistence, and various methods were used such as nets, bow and arrow spears, wicker baskets, and hooks. Other Tao were involved in poultry, raising animals, lumbering, weaving, and shipbuilding. Mind blown. We were already doing shipbuilding. We were getting to, like, our civilization was evolving and already getting better. We're already doing shipbuilding, guys. Come on. How amazing is that? In fact, early Spanish explorers complimented indigenous Tao for their expertise in building highly efficient and effective ocean vessels for various purposes such as travel, fishing, war, or trading. Indeed, the indigenous Tao were also involved in trading both with nearby tribes and those coming from what we now consider to be the other countries outside the Philippines. It is evident that there were plenty of thinking, planning, adaptation that went on during early times that shaped the culture, living preferences, and condition of indigenous Tao. Such an ability to survive and live adaptively and efficiently according to their environment is evidence that they were highly intelligent and resilient people. Art, literature, music, and dances. To celebrate, document, depict, and display their culture and daily lives, the indigenous Tao had various forms of art. Literature, music, and dances, in addition to the ornaments, accessories, and tattoos they wore on their bodies that evidence their artistic abilities, their tools, weapons, and potteries were also adorned with artistic designs. Much of the designs depict plants, animals, and humans, suggesting that artistic inspiration came from their natural and indigenous environments. There were also various forms of written oral literature that depicted and celebrated. There were also various forms of written and oral literature. Written, we were already literate. And depicted and celebrated important events and activities such as boating, which is called talindao, wedding, ihiman, or love, kumintang, or konduman. Kumintang is war. Many of these villagers were presented with music, and the wind and stringed musical instruments they used were made out of bamboo, such as gangsa, kudyap, and bansik. We were having musical instruments. Even then, we were very musical. And relatedly, the dance often accompanied the music and the lyrics. And dances were again often inspired by natural and daily occurring events and activities by both human and animals. For instance, the popular Filipino tradition dance of dinikling was inspired by a tickling bird tiptoeing over traps set by rice farmers. Furthermore, another Filipino dance, the singkil, depicted a young warrior, defended and rescued beautiful princess from harm. There were other forms of art, such as well-developed system of the indigenous mythology, the diwata, anito, tala, duende, encantada, encanto, accompanying stories, makiling, sinukuan, as well as martial arts. I didn't even know we had martial arts. Oh my gosh, eskrima, kali, or arnis. All of these were inspired by their natural environments with mythical creatures being the guardians of mountains, trees, the skies, the ocean, who need respect and occasional offerings and weapons for their self-defense. Usually being composed of sticks and other accessible materials. However, many of them are rarely practiced or told today, even if known and remembered due to colonialism and its effects. Guys, look. This is what our letters would have been. Hope you can see that. It's called baybayin. We should be proud of this. And also, I'm sad. Proud and sad. Proud because I didn't know we had such a rich, intelligent, amazing civilization already. And sad that it's all been wiped away. And we don't know, like, this is not taught to us in school. Let's teach this at school alongside English. Okay, let's teach our kids. In order to be able to develop so much literature and art, the indigenous Tao must have had a system of writing. This writing system alphabet is referred as baybayin. Although there are variations among the very diverse groups of indigenous peoples in terms of language, many of the indigenous Tao languages did not include F sound, as you can see in figure 1. Thus, it is understandable why even many modern-day Filipinos and Filipino Americans may confuse their P's and F's when they speak. That makes so much sense! Because not simply F, the F sound, is simply not indigenous, perhaps even unnatural to them. In utilizing their indigenous languages and writing, the Tao used tree sap as ink and pointed sticks as writing utensils on leaves, trees, bamboo tubes, and tree barks. Again, using what was naturally available to them and living off the land. Along with the spiritual beliefs related to mythology, system, music, stories, and daily living skills, reading and writing and baybayin were taught to children by their parents. This was educational system and ways of passing along the culture to the next generations. In fact, early Spanish explorers and missionaries were amazed when they found out the majority of the indigenous Tao were literate and proficient in their native alphabet. This is the evidence. What a complex and well-developed, well-functioning and well-cultured and arguably well-educated society was in existence for many generations in the islands prior to European arrival. And we also had, they were also religious, and this is another thing, government and law. The indigenous Tao had a well-established system of government prior to Spanish arrival on the islands. The basic unit of government was called balangay or barangay, which in translation is tribe or village, which is composed of approximately 60 families. Each balangay is headed by a tahu or a raja, who led in consultation with a council of barangay elders, suggesting that indigenous Tao highly regarded and valued wisdom of their elders. and suggesting that the Tao did not simply place all the governing power in the hands of their Datu. The chief held the responsibility of governing people and ensuring their welfare and survival. The chief, along with the council of elders, developed laws and settled disputes among the barangay people. Developed laws, In addition to regular contact between barangays through trade, chiefs from multiple barangays often came together to combine the resources of their groups in order to achieve a common cause, such as win a war against other indigenous tribes or survive tough times. When this happened, the chiefs each dropped their blood in a cup, and they took all a drink from it, making the chiefs and their barangays blood brothers or sisters. It's called a blood compact or sundugan, and creating a deep connection between them. In this, the indigenous Tao's form of government, women may also become chiefs in absence of a male heir. In general, women were treated as equal to men, with women being allowed to own property, engage in trade and industry, and often holding high positions in society, such as babaylan, who were regarded as the healers, shamans, wisdom keepers, philosophers, and spiritual leaders of barangay. Women were deeply respected and valued by the indigenous Tao, and it is even customary for men to walk behind women in order to show their respect. This example suggests that the indigenous Tao were advanced enough to create a well-functioning system of government to efficiently run their society and preserve their cultural and ways of life. Furthermore, they even practiced the concept of gender equality. Long before the women's rights movements in the United States during the 1960s. In fact, the indigenous Tao regarded men and women so equally that they did not even have words such as he, she, him, or his, or her to differentiate between men and women. This is probably why many Filipinos today still confuse such terms when they speak English. Also, traces such as an equal regard for gender can be seen in the fact that modern Filipino culture continually hold women in high regard, often expecting the woman in the family to pursue higher education and become leaders in the family, education, industry, and even the government, as exemplified by the fact that Philippines have already elected 2 women as president in its relatively, as compared to its former colonial rulers, Spain and United States, for instance, brief history of being a democratic country. Wow. We didn't even have words for he or she, because women were treated equally to men, and men walk behind women as a sign of respect. It's like, wow. They were definitely ahead of their time. I mean, I'm not saying it was a perfect time, but it's still better off without, getting told what to do and being belittled and being occupied. At least they had their own sovereignty. This is the last part, guys. Chapter summary. Similar to how Christopher Columbus did not discover the Americans, famed explorer Ferdinand Magellan did not discover the islands we now know as Philippines. No way. Discussed in more detail in chapter 2. Contrary to this Western-centric representation of the Philippine history, the indigenous Tao have been living in the islands for many generations before the first Europeans even set foot on the islands. Indeed, there is plenty of evidence to suggest that the indigenous Tao lived in a highly developed, highly complex, and culture-rich, also very diverse and multicultural society prior to Spanish occupation. They had their own form of music, art, literature, written and spoken language, religion, and government. The indigenous Tao also had a variety of ways of surviving and thriving in their natural environment, making use of the natural resources that were abundant in the lands of the mountains. the rivers and the oceans. Their economy was not based on or dependent upon foreign goods or resources. They took pride in what they created and the materials that were naturally available to them. They did not depend on foreigners to survive, nor did they regard anything made in the USA or imported as being more valuable or better than what they created. The existence of such society is evidence that the indigenous Tao were resilient, independent, proud, creative, resourceful, intelligent, and respectful peoples. There are characteristics that the modern Filipinos should be proud of, and they need to have a knowledge of such history. The discussed history and such a presentation of the Tao's indigenous culture and ways of life, however, are unknown to many modern Filipinos, like me, because it is either erased by colonialism, distorted by erased by colonialism, distorted by dominant historical narratives, and consequently not readily or easily available for those who are searching for it. Like, I had to buy this book from Amazon. I had to go on YouTube and search for colorism, and I didn't see any discussions within group. Like, I would have like a few people talk about it, but we don't have discussions of colorisms. Or if I see one about crab mentality or colonial mentality, there will always be presented as, you know, we needed the States, we needed the Spanish to teach us this. No, we were already getting there. We were already shipbuilding. We had our art. We already had all those things. Don't be fooled. Such a lack of positive regard toward an important and highly salient piece of oneself can lead to many undesired outcomes, such as identity confusion, and even self-hate, which are highly distressing and may develop into serious psychological concerns. Admirable culture of indigenous Tao were demonized, distorted, inferiorized, and eventually erased and forgotten. I begin with the advent of Spanish colonialism. So chapter 2. Whoo! That's gonna be for the next one. Honestly, this book, as I was reading it, I started reading it, I was on my way to my doctor. Honestly, I was crying on the subway. I try to hold it back, but it's hard. It's hard. But guys, if you want to learn more about our history and why we have this inferiority complex, and maybe we think we don't, because we are proud of we're Filipinos, of course we're proud, but our action sometimes does not resonate. And I say this because, like, why do we try to be light-skinned, for example? And why I see it within Filipinos where they make fun of, they make fun of people who have accents or who can't speak English properly. Guys, please, please, please join me in this Brown Skin White Minds book. This is amazing. So, anyways, guys, please, if you like this kind of video, subscribe, hit that notification button so you can come and read with me, and we'll discuss in the comments below. Comment for sure of what you think so far of the first chapter, and share to fellow Filipinos. So please, 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 you know what? I'm gonna buy more copies of this to have as a gift, because this is a must read, and I'm sure there are more books that I need to read, but this is a good start. Anyways, guys, maraming salamat po, and we'll see you next time. Bye!